Chapter 1. Vows beneath the northern lights. When Lin Yiyej walked out of Orlando airport dragging her suitcase, a steady drizzle was falling over Stockholm. The Nordic September already carried a chill, and she instinctively pulled her trench coat tighter around herself. As she looked up at the leaden sky and unfamiliar signboards in a foreign language, a nameless loneliness crept over her. This was her first time setting foot on Swedish soil. As an outstanding graduate of Tsinghua University's computer science department, she had received an offer from Nordstrom Technologies to work as a researcher in their AI development division. Her decision was met with strong opposition from her parents. Why should a girl go so far away? Sweden is cold and unfamiliar, but Lin Yiyej stood her ground. She longed for a breakthrough and wanted to prove herself in an entirely new environment. Dr. Lin? A clear male voice interrupted her thoughts. Lin Yiyej turned and saw a tall blonde man holding a sign with her name on it, smiling warmly at her. He was wearing a dark blue sweater and casual jeans. His eyes were a striking Nordic ice blue, gleaming especially brightly under the rainy sky. "I'm Eric Johansson, your project partner," he introduced himself in lightly accented English, naturally taking her suitcase. "Welcome to Sweden." "Thank you. Just call me Lin Yiyej," she replied politely, instinctively keeping a bit of distance. She noticed that unlike in China, Eric didn't shake hands on first meeting but instead directly helped with her luggage. The casual familiarity caught her a bit off guard. On the way to the company, Eric enthusiastically pointed out sights along the road and explained Swedish customs and culture. Lin Yiyej listened quietly, occasionally nodding. The streets outside were clean and sparse, with few pedestrians, a stark contrast to the bustling streets of Beijing. "We're here." Eric parked in front of a sleek, modern glass building. "This is Nordstrom headquarters." Lin Yiyej looked up at the gleaming building shimmering in the sunlight, her heart beating faster. This was the new beginning of her professional career. On her first day at work, Lin Yiyej arrived half an hour early, only to find the office completely empty. It wasn't until exactly 9 o'clock that her colleagues started to show up. Even more surprising, everyone including the department had left promptly at 4 in the afternoon. "Do Swedes not work overtime?" She couldn't help asking Eric during lunch. Eric smiled and shook his head. "Work is for living, not the other way around. Unless it's an emergency, we don't use up personal time." He took a bite of his sandwich. "By the way, are you ready for tomorrow's project kickoff meeting?" Lin Yiyej nodded and pulled out a thick stack of printed materials from her bag. "I've prepared a detailed project plan and risk assessment, plus 3 alternative proposals." Eric's eyes widened. "Wait, we usually just stick to a general direction. Details can be adjusted as we go. How is that acceptable?" Lin Yiyej frowned. "Without a detailed plan, how do you ensure the project runs smoothly? Plans that are too rigid can actually hinder innovation." Eric shrugged. "There's an old Swedish saying, 'Good enough is good enough.'" This was their first clash in work philosophy and far from the last. As the project progressed, their differences became more apparent. Lin Yiyej preferred planning every detail in advance, while Eric thrived on improvisation. She liked solving problems on her own. He favored team discussions. She kept a strict boundary between work and personal life, while he often shared personal anecdotes during lunch. Yet it was precisely these differences that led Lin Yiyej to appreciate Eric's way of thinking. He could always come up with creative angles she hadn't considered and diffuse team tensions with humor and ease. And Eric, in turn, was drawn to Lin Yiyej's diligence and precision. He often invited her to dinner or weekend outings. One Friday afternoon, Eric knocked on her desk. "Got time tomorrow? I'd like to show you around the old town." Lin Yiyej hesitated. "I was planning to prep for next week's presentation." "Work never ends," Eric winked. "You need to experience real Swedish life." The next day, Eric led Lin Yiyej along the cobbled streets of Stockholm's old town, explaining the history of each building. Sunlight filtered through his golden lashes, casting a mosaic of light and shadow. While resting at a cafe, he suddenly asked, "Do you get homesick?" Lin Yiyej paused, stirring her coffee. "Sometimes, especially." She hesitated. "Especially when I can't find authentic Chinese food." Eric's eyes lit up. "I know a great Chinese restaurant." He pulled out his phone to check the time. "Are you free tonight?" And so Eric began appearing more and more in Lin Yi's life. He introduced her to traditional Swedish dishes, taught her basic Swedish phrases, and brought her homemade mulled wine when she had a cold. Lin Yi taught him to use chopsticks, told him about Chinese holidays, and even cooked a full Chinese meal for his birthday. 3 months later, on a snowy night, Eric walked Lin Yi home and stopped suddenly under a street lamp. Lin Yi. His voice trembled slightly. "I think I'm in love with you." Snowflakes landed on Lin Yi's lashes, and her heart pounded like a drum. Rationally, she knew this was risky cultural differences, parental opposition, uncertainty about the future. But looking into Eric's sincere blue eyes, she couldn't bring herself to say no. "I need time to think," she finally said softly. Eric didn't give up. He respected her hesitation but continued to express his feelings in countless ways. Chinese tea mysteriously appearing on her desk, a Chinese learning app on his phone, even starting to study traditional Chinese culture. The turning point came during the New Year holiday. Eric invited Lin Yi to Kiruna to see the Northern Lights. Northern Lights? It was the first time Lin Yi showed real excitement. In Swedish culture, the aurora symbolizes a new beginning. Eric said gently, "I want to witness it with you, in a glass room at the Ice Hotel." As the brilliant green lights danced like silk across the night sky, Eric gently held Lin Yi's hand. "Did you know? The Sami people believe the Northern Lights are the spirits of departed loved ones dancing in the sky. Right now, I feel like my grandmother is blessing us too." Staring at the ever-changing sky, Lin Yi finally understood what it meant to be moved. She turned to Eric and kissed him. After returning to Stockholm, the two officially began their relationship. But when Lin Yi told her parents over video call, they reacted strongly. "How can you trust a foreigner?" Her father slammed the table. "Your lifestyles, values are all different. You'll suffer." Her mother wept. I'm not against love. I just don't want you to get hurt. We're so far away, we wouldn't even be able to help you." Lin Yi silently shed tears but couldn't refute her parents' worries. She and Eric did have many differences, from eating habits to spending philosophies, social styles to life plans. But every time she wavered, Eric gave her strength. "We can learn about each other's cultures slowly," he said, holding her hand. "What matters is that we love each other and are willing to change for one another." A year later, Eric proposed to Lin Yi at the airport where they first met, and she said yes. They decided to have a simple wedding in Sweden, followed by a traditional Chinese ceremony back home.
Chapter 2. Vows Beneath the Northern Lights. Life after marriage was sweet, but full of challenges. Lin Yu preferred getting up early and going to bed early. Eric was a night owl. She liked to keep the home spotless. He believed comfort is more important than cleanliness. She saved money for rainy days. He preferred to enjoy life in the moment. Their most intense clash happened at a friend's gathering. Eric's friends casually discussed everything, even intimate details and politics, which made Lin Yu uncomfortable. After returning home, she couldn't help but complain. "Why do you Swedes bring every private matter out in the open?" Eric, puzzled, replied, "What's wrong with honest communication? Some things should only be shared with the closest people." Lin Yu raised her voice. That was their first real argument, and it ended with Eric apologizing and compromising, but the seed of conflict had been sown, and similar disputes grew more frequent. On their second wedding anniversary, Lin Yu prepared a lavish Chinese dinner and set candles for atmosphere. But Eric didn't come home until 9 p.m., arriving with only a bouquet. "Sorry, I had a last-minute project meeting," he kissed her cheek. Trying to hold back disappointment, Lin Yu replied, "The food's cold now. We can reheat it." Eric shrugged and turned on the TV to watch soccer. Lin Yu quietly cleared the table, feeling hurt. In China, anniversaries are special, and Eric clearly hadn't taken it seriously. 6 months later, the biggest crisis erupted. On her 30th birthday, Lin Yu brought up planning for a baby. "We should start with a full health checkup, adjust diet and routine, track the ovulation window." She presented a detailed chart. Eric frowned. Why so deliberate? A child should be a natural gift of love. Scientific preparation is vital for the baby's health. Lin Yu insisted. "Sweets take things as they come." Eric shook his head. "You're too tense. It's not good." Again with the Swedes. Lin Yu burst out, "Have you considered my feelings, my culture? Or must I fully adapt to your ways?" Eric froze. "I didn't mean that." "Then what?" Lin Yu's voice trembled. "Every disagreement ends with me giving in. I study Swedish customs. I adapt to Nordic life. Why haven't you changed for me?" "I've done so much for you." Eric raised his voice too. "I'm learning Chinese, eating Chinese food, celebrating Chinese festivals with you." "But it's superficial," Lin Yu cried. "When it comes to important things, you still insist your way is right." Eric slammed the door and left. Lin Yu sat in the dark living room contemplating the future of their marriage. She loved him, but cultural friction, especially over having children, felt increasingly impossible to reconcile. At 2 in there, Eric returned and gently sat next to her, tears in his red-rimmed eyes. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have spoken like that." "Lin, you didn't respond." Eric took her hand. "I thought all night, maybe we compromise? We follow your plan for 3 months, then go with the flow?" Lin Yu looked up. "It's not just about preparation, Eric. I worry what culture will our child identify with, which festivals, which primary language." Eric was silent. Finally, he said, "I don't know. But we can find the answers together." Outside, snow began to fall over Stockholm. Lin Yu gazed at the man she had loved for over 3 years and realized marriage isn't the end of differences, but the start of learning to live with them. "We need help," she whispered. "Maybe cross-cultural counseling?" Eric held her tightly. "If you're willing to keep trying, so am I." In the long Nordic winter nights, 2 hearts from different cultures continued striving to find harmony. Lin Yu stared at the 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test, her fingers trembling. It was the 3rd month since they'd stopped contraception, perfectly timed according to her plan. She gently touched her flat belly, inspired by a profound sense of purpose. This child would be their strongest bond, their cultural bridge. "Eric!" She rushed from the bathroom, voice wobbly with excitement. In the living room, barefoot and seated on the sofa, Eric was absorbed in a video game. He only said, "Mom?" without looking up. "I'm pregnant." Lin Yu held up the test before him. The game sounds froze abruptly. Eric's icy blue eyes widened, and the next moment he swept her into an almost overwhelming embrace. "That's wonderful," he kissed her forehead, nose, lips. "See? Going with the flow was best after all." Her smile froze for a moment. Even in this joyful moment, he had to underscore his point. She chose to let it pass and reached for a thick file from the coffee table. "I've already made a pregnancy plan." She opened neatly labeled pages. Folic acid and DHA supplements for the first trimester, prenatal yoga 3 times a week, a playlist of prenatal music. Eric's smile faded. "Sweetheart, you don't need to stress. Swedish women go about life almost normally, some even work until a week before due date." "That's Swedish women." Lin Yu couldn't help raising her voice. "Chinese women take pregnancy care very seriously. Also," she paused, "I've booked the best confinement center in Beijing. Mom will come a month early to take care of me." Eric let go of her, shocked. "Your mother to stay a month? At least?" Lin Yu was firm. "This is tradition, Zuo Yuezi, mothers need special care then." Eric frowned. "But our life. She's my mother." Emotion choked Lin Yu. "And it's for our baby's health. Don't you know how many postpartum illnesses come from skipping confinement?" Eric raised his hands in surrender. "Okay, if you insist. But I think modern medicine already. You don't get it." Lin Yu's eyes watered. "It's not just medicine, it's culture, tradition. Can you try to understand what matters to me?" On the way to their first prenatal checkup, the car was tense. Lin Yu stared out at the passing snow, fingers brushing her abdomen. Since that confinement argument, an invisible coldness had settled between them. Eric tried to lighten the mood. "The doctor said we might hear the heartbeat today." Lin Yu barely responded and continued scanning a Chinese parenting app. She had joined a group of overseas Chinese moms sharing traditional care experiences, a comforting anchor. "Oh," she began, "I downloaded some Chinese lullabies. Playing them daily is good for brain development." Eric drummed his fingers on the wheel. "Isn't it too early? The language center isn't developed yet. Prenatal education can start at 3 months." Lin Yu cited the app. "And I want our child to speak fluent Chinese and understand Chinese culture." "He'll learn Chinese," Eric replied calmly. "But the main languages should be Swedish and English since we live here." Lin Yu snapped. "He? How do you know it's a boy?" And why can't Chinese be a main language? Just saying, Eric sighed. The child will choose what culture they like. I don't think we need to decide everything now. If we don't start early, there's no choice. Lin Yu's voice quivered. Like my cousin's child born in Germany and now won't speak Chinese at all. Eric pulled into the hospital. What's wrong with being westernized? We live here. It means cutting off half their cultural roots. Lin Yu unbuckled her seatbelt. That's part of me, Eric. If the child rejects Chinese culture, they're rejecting me. The checkup went smoothly. When the Doppler picked up the strong little heartbeat, Lin Yu burst into tears. Eric held her hand, and they both were awed by the miracle. All is normal, the doctor said, removing her gloves. Any questions? Lin Yu sat up. About postpartum care. China has Zuo Yuezi. Is that necessary? The doctor raised her eyebrows at Eric. Good question. Western medicine underestimates postpartum recovery. Proper rest and nutrition are crucial, especially for Asian women. Eric looked astonished. So, you recommend it? Not necessarily locking the mother at home, the doctor clarified, but the first 6 weeks do need special care. If her mother can help, that's very beneficial. Exiting the office, Eric seemed uneasy. I didn't know medicine supports that too. Now you know, Lin Yu gently took his arm. This was a small victory in bridging their cultures, but she knew the real challenges lay ahead. 2 weeks before the due date, Lin Yu's mother arrived in Stockholm. Pushing her luggage cart through customs, she looked thinner and much older, hair mostly white, but her eyes brightened as she saw her daughter. Mom! Lin Yu ran into her arms, inhaling the faint scent of medicinal herbs. Tears stung her nose. It had been 2 years since they last saw one another. Her mother, speaking in Ningbo dialect, fussed. I brought all your favorites: preserved mustard greens, goji berries, angelica. Oh dear, Sweden's so cold. Why you dress so lightly? Eric awkwardly forced a smile. Hello, Mom. He attempted in broken Chinese to help with the bags, but Lin Yu's mother stepped back protectively. I'll take these, she said sharply. You don't understand, they're valuable herbs. In the car, she peppered Lin Yu with questions about her diet and routines, ignoring Eric, who sat tensely in the driver's seat. Lin Yu saw his stiff jaw in the rearview mirror and felt her chest tighten. That night, a conflict erupted. Her mother insisted on sleeping in the guest room closest to the master bedroom for convenient nighttime care, but that room was Eric's office. I can move downstairs, Eric quietly told Lin Yu. But your mother's staying 2 whole months? She can hear. Lin Yu stood awkwardly between them, acting as translator. Her mother didn't know English but sensed the tension. She snapped in Chinese, Yu, it seems this Western son-in-law doesn't welcome me. Had I known, I wouldn't let you marry so far away. Mom, Lin Yu choked up. Eric just needs time to adapt. Adapt to what? Her mother hissed. In China, a son-in-law must respect his mother-in-law. Eric finally gave in, but that led to a week of frosty silence. Lin Yu cried facing the wall each night, caught between husband and mother, while Eric lay turned away as though a barrier separated them. 3 days before the due date, Lin Yu's water broke. The 18-hour labor ended when their tiny, purple-skinned daughter was placed on her chest. Lin Yu exhausted beyond words. She vaguely saw Eric cutting the umbilical cord, tears glistening in his eyes, and heard her mother fervently recalling, she looked just like you, before slipping into unconsciousness. The second day postpartum, her mother began strict confinement routines. She brewed daily dark medicinal soups, forbidding Lin Yu from bathing or showering, even from walking. Nurses at the hospital were shocked and tried to intervene but were firmly rebuffed. This is a 1,000-year tradition. Her mother declared in broken English, You don't understand. Eric stood in the hospital room's corner, increasingly agitated. When his mother-in-law tightly swaddled the baby's legs, he finally snapped. What are you doing? He rushed forward. This will harm her hips. Nonsense, her mother shot back. My daughter was swaddled this way, and her legs turned out perfectly straight. Lin Yu lay weakly between them, watching them clash without power to stop it. The infant was startled awake and began crying loudly. That's enough, Lin Yu finally imploded. Both of you get out. That night, once quiet returned to the ward, Lin Yu softly sang a Chinese lullaby to her daughter. The baby blonde like Eric, with her own almond-shaped eyes, was a perfect cultural fusion. But Lin Yu felt utterly alone. She longed for her mother's traditional care and needed her husband's support, but couldn't have both. Back home, tensions eased a bit. Eric avoided confrontation with his mother-in-law, and Lin Yi's mother grudgingly allowed him to care for the baby the Western way, but only when he was home. The moment he left for work, she reverted to traditional methods, scheduled feeding, herbal baths, even talismans in the baby's room. Lin Yu knew Eric would be upset but felt too weak to stop her mother. In the third postpartum week, Eric came home early and found her mother giving acupuncture to the crying baby. The tension finally exploded. Chapter 3: Vows Beneath the Northern Lights. Are you crazy? Eric snatched the baby. She's only 3 weeks old, how can you stick needles in her? It's Chinese acupuncture, it treats night crying very effectively. Lin's mother defended herself with confidence. This is Sweden, not the Middle Ages. Eric shouted. Lin Yu, are you just going to stand there and let your mother hurt our child? Lin sat on the sofa, face flushed red. Mom means well. Chinese medicine, really. Enough. Eric interrupted. Either your mother stops these dangerous practices, or she leaves. They compromised. Lin's mother agreed to stop all traditional treatments on the baby and only help care for Lin Yi's meals. But the atmosphere had been completely shattered, the apartment filled with suffocating silence. 6 weeks into maternity leave, Lin Yi received an email from the company. The AI department would be reorganizing. As the only team member on leave, she sensed danger immediately. I need to go back to work early, she told Eric at dinner, at least to keep my position. Eric frowned. Why so hurry? You have 10 months of paid leave. If I wait 10 months, I might lose the job. Lin said anxiously. Tech moves fast, being gone even 6 months can mean you're obsolete. That's fine, Eric dismissed. You can spend more time with Erica. Kids need their mother more. Lin's eyes widened. What do you mean? You want me to be a full-time mom? Why not? Eric shrugged. In Sweden, many mothers stay home with kids until age 3. But that's their choice. Lin's voice trembled. I have a PhD, a career, I don't want to give it up. No one's asking you to give up, Eric spoke calmly. Just delay it a few years until Erica starts daycare. My skills will be outdated in those years, she interrupted. Do you know how hard it is for women to re-enter tech? Especially in technical roles. Eric set down his fork. So your job is more important than raising our daughter? That cut like a knife. Lin opened her mouth but was unable to speak. In Sweden, long maternal leave is normal. In China, returning to work quickly after giving birth is the norm. Neither is inherently right, only deeply rooted cultural differences. That night, Lin lay awake. She quietly went into the nursery and looked at her sleeping daughter. Moonlight filtered in, highlighting baby Erica's face with a silver glow. This child, born of Chinese and Swedish heritage, which culture would she identify with? Which language would she speak first? Which values would she grow up with? Lin Yi didn't know the answers. She only knew she didn't want to entirely abandon Chinese-style parenting, but couldn't force Eric to accept all Chinese traditions. She also yearned for career development, yet hated missing her daughter's early growth moments. The next day was Lin Yu's birthday. After weeks of tension, she had no expectations. That afternoon, while she and her mother were making dumplings, Eric came home early, holding a beautifully wrapped gift. Happy birthday. He kissed her cheek and handed over the gift. Open it. Inside was a Chinese-Swedish bilingual fairy tale book titled A Fairy Tale Under the Northern Lights. I searched a long time for a good bilingual book, Eric said shyly. I thought, maybe we can teach Erica Chinese together. A few nights a week, the whole family studies. Lin's eyes watered. It was Eric's first proactive step towards supporting their child's Chinese education, not a compromise or concession, but genuine involvement. Thank you. She choked out, then noticed handwriting on the opening page, Eric's clumsy Chinese. To the person I love most. May our love, like the northern lights, cross all boundaries. Lin's mother watched silently with a complex expression. That night, she even mustered simple English to speak with Eric and tried his homemade Swedish meatballs. Late that night, Lin leaned on Eric's shoulder. Let's hire a nanny, she whispered. Then Mom can go home sooner and I can maybe start part-time work. Eric stroked her hair. I'm thinking maybe we can alternate leave? Sweden allows paternal leave. Lin looked up. You'd stay home with the baby? Why not? Eric smiled. She's our daughter, not just your responsibility. Outside the window, Stockholm's night sky suddenly shimmered with a faint green glow, a rare early glimpse of the northern lights. Lynn, holding sleeping Erica, stood shoulder to shoulder with Eric, watching the dancing glow. 3 different heartbeats beat as one, fleeting and precious. Back at the Nordstrom office building, Lynn Yu stood before the glass doors and took a deep breath, adjusting her ID badge. She had compressed 4 months of maternity leave into just 2, barely the shortest she can negotiate. She wore her pre-pregnancy suit jacket, light makeup. Hair pulled into a neat ponytail, everything looked as professional as on the day she left, as though those months away had been a short break. As the automatic doors slid open, receptionist Lisa was stunned. "Dr. Lynn? You're back already?" "Projects can't wait," Lynn smiled. Her voice was even lighter than she expected. In the elevator, her phone buzzed. A photo from baby Erica sleeping on his chest, golden fuzz nearly translucent in the sun. The caption read, "We miss you." Lynn paused, then replied with a simple smiling emoji. The office seemed more crowded than she remembered. New faces glanced at her curiously. Colleagues who remained welcomed her back, but Lynn noticed subtle pity in their eyes. "Welcome back," her direct manager Anders said, patting her shoulder. "But you could have taken more time." "Hannah is doing well leading your project." Lynn felt a knot in her stomach. "Hannah?" she said, stunned. "I thought it was just temporary." "Post-restructure adjustments." Anders avoided her gaze. "We'll discuss later." Her desk had been moved to a corner by the window, now cluttered with files from other departments. Logging into her computer, she discovered her permissions had been reduced. Several key databases were inaccessible. At lunch, colleague Marta explained everything. The department was downsized while Lynn was on leave. A third of the team laid off. The main project she led had been handed over to Hanna, a newly graduated Swedish woman from Lund University. "They can't do this." Lynn's voice trembled with anger. "That project was my baby," Marta shrugged. "You know how tech companies treat women on maternity leave. Plus, Hannah's Anders' niece probably helps." On the way back to her desk, Lynn passed the meeting room and peered in. Through the glass, she saw Hannah presenting Lynn's algorithms and code to executives, the very work Lynn had developed. Hannah wore casual jeans and a t-shirt, speaking confidently. So different from Lynn's buttoned-up, rigid style. In that moment, Lynn understood her predicament in Swedish tech. She was too Chinese, not Swedish enough. No matter how skilled, she could never truly fit in. That evening, returning home felt heavy. In the apartment, Eric sat on the carpet reading a picture book to Erica while pasta aroma filled the air. "First day back?" he asked, looking up. Baby Erica reached toward Lynn with her chubby hand. Lynn picked up Erica, resting her cheek on the infant's soft neck, lingering in that moment without responding. She didn't want to complain on her first day back. But when she looked into Eric's expectant eyes, the hurt she'd bottled up all day finally burst. "They gave away my project," she said, voice cracking. 4 years of work. Just stolen. Eric frowned. "That's against policy you have a right to." "Policy won't help," Lynn interrupted. "Isn't Sweden supposed to be the most equal country? But leave for motherhood and the bias kicks in even here. Maybe it's just temporary," Eric tried to soothe. "Once you fully return." "There is no fully return." Lynn forced a bitter laugh. "I've been sidelined. They even denied my server permissions today." Erica, sensing her mother's distress, squirmed in Lynn's arms. Lynn rocked her mechanically, but her mind drifted. If she had stayed in Beijing. China's maternity leave is shorter, sure, but at least she wouldn't risk losing career ground. "Hey," Eric gently took her shoulder. "Tomorrow will be better. If it doesn't work here, we could..." "Could what?" Lynn asked sharply. "Make me the full-time stay-at-home mom?" Eric withdrew. "I just meant we have options." But Lynn thought, this isn't an option, it's surrender, compromise, and conceding defeat. Over the next 2 weeks, things deteriorated. Lynn was given marginal technical support roles, far from core decisions. What frustrated her most was her inability to fully engage in work. When she stayed late, anxiety ate her. What about Erica at home? When she left early, colleagues stared. Friday afternoon, when Hannah borrowed Lynn's algorithm notes without asking, Lynn finally broke. "That's my private work folder," she snapped, grabbing it back. "If you want to use it, ask me first." Hannah blinked, taken aback. "I thought we're a team." "Teams respect each other." Lynn set her jaw. Silence fell. Several disapproving looks were directed at Lin as though she was the unreasonable one. Sweden's celebrated harmony culture now seemed hypocritical. Beneath the calm lay equally fierce and hidden competition. Weekend relief. Eric suggested a family getaway to a lakeside cabin. You need to relax, get away from work a few days. Lin wanted to refuse. She planned to use the weekend to learn a new programming framework to make up for lost ground. But she agreed when she saw Erica happily clapping in her stroller. The cabin lay on a lake, surrounded by pines. Late Swedish summer sunlight played on the water with speckles of gold. Eric busied himself making a barbecue fire while Lin played with Erica on the porch. Let her nap in the stroller, Eric advised. Swedish docs say outdoor naps help immunity. Lin hesitated, then moved the stroller to a shaded spot. Erica quickly fell asleep, little arms raised overhead like a peaceful surrender. I'm gathering kindling, Eric kissed Lin's forehead. You watch the fire. Lin took out her phone to check email. A message from Tsinghua Professor Zheng made her hold her breath. An ice startup in Beijing was looking for a technical director, and Zhang had recommended her. They offer equity and high salary, value your international experience, the email read. Her fingers trembled. This was more than a job, it was a return to China's tech core, a professional breakthrough she'd been longing for since maternity leave. But, look, Eric's voice broke her thoughts. He returned triumphant, holding gathered firewood. I found wild blueberries by the lake. Lin hurriedly locked her screen. Great. At dinner, Lin pushed her food around distractedly, the professor's offer burning in her mind. How would she tell Eric? Would he understand how crucial it was for her career? You've been quiet today. Eric offered her a glass of wine. Work still troubling you? Lin shook her head, but then tentatively tested. I was thinking, what if a great job opportunity came in China? Would you consider moving? Eric froze. China? Are you serious? Just hypothetically. Erica is only 6 months, Eric frowned. China has pollution, food safety, and a super competitive education system. Beijing airs much better now, Lin responded. Plus international schools. We live in Sweden, Eric cut her off. We have the world's best welfare system here, why give up? Lin felt pressure in her chest. For my career? For Erica to know her Chinese heritage? You can rebuild your career here, Eric's tone hardened. As for culture, we can visit on holidays. The conversation ended badly. That night, Lin lay awake in the narrow cabin bed. Eric pretended to sleep. Their invisible wall had returned. Early the next morning, Lin was awakened by Erica's cries. She woke, but found the stroller empty. Panic rose. She rushed outside. Eric was standing by the lake with Erica wearing only a diaper, her tiny feet in the chilly water. Lin's scream startled the birds. What are you doing? She rushed forward, taking the baby. Water's freezing, she gets sick. It's a Swedish tradition, Eric said innocently. To expose babies to nature for immunity. I used to. This isn't the Swedish countryside? Lin wrapped Erica tightly in a blanket. And she's 6 months, not 6 years. You're too protective, Eric frowned. Look at you, can't even let her cry a moment? Are all Chinese moms like this? At least Chinese moms don't risk pneumonia. Lin was furious. You always assume Swedish ways are best, never considering my feelings or my culture. What about me? Eric raised his voice. Do you consider my feelings? Suddenly talking about moving to China as if Erica is only your child. Their shouting drew attention from campers nearby. Lin, holding her crying baby, ran back to the cabin and slammed the door forcefully. Her heart hammered and tears poured freely. It wasn't their first cultural clash, but first involving their child's health and safety. Once that line is crossed, compromise becomes nearly impossible. On the drive back to Stockholm, the silence was nearly as solid as ice. Erica slept in her car seat, moon-dry from tears. Lin looked out the window, for the first time truly wondering about the future of this marriage. If they can't agree on basic parenting methods, if they must constantly choose between Sweden and China, if her career must always yield to motherhood... how long can this marriage last? Monday morning, Lin requested a sick day. After Eric left for work, she replied to Professor Zheng's email, expressing strong interest and asking for more details. Then she logged into LinkedIn. The AI industry in China silent too long without her.
Chapter 4. Vows. Beneath the northern lights around noon, The doorbell rang. Lin Yi opened the door and was surprised to see Marta standing there. "I heard you were sick." Marta handed her a bag of fresh bread. "I came to check on Erica. And you?" Lin Yi awkwardly let her in. She hadn't expected a Swedish colleague to do something like this back in China. Colleagues rarely made surprise visits. "Actually, I'm not sick," she admitted. "I just needed some time to think." Marta nodded knowingly. "Trouble at work?" Lin Yi poured her some tea and briefly recounted her experience of being marginalized. To her surprise, Marta didn't show sympathy or surprise. "That's how the Swedish workplace is," she shrugged. "It looks equal on the surface, but it's actually conservative, especially toward foreign women. Did you know only 20% of the tech leads in our department are women? And they're all Swedish. I thought Sweden was a model of gender equality." "Models have to maintain their image," Marta scoffed. "Just like our welfare system, glossy on the outside, but full of holes inside." This conversation strengthened Lin Yi's determination to make a change. That night, after Erica had fallen asleep, she opened her laptop and began drafting a serious job application letter to a company in China. The sound of the bathroom door opening interrupted her thoughts. Eric came out, drying his hair. When he saw her laptop screen, his expression froze. "What are you doing?" Lin Yi took a deep breath. "I'm considering Professor Zhang's offer." Eric's face instantly turned pale. "So you're serious? You're planning to take Erica back to China?" "I'm considering all my options." Lin Yi tried to stay calm. "My career here has no future, and China now has the best opportunities in AI. What about me?" Eric's voice trembled. "My job, my family, my friends. Are you just going to throw all that away?" "I'm not throwing anything away," Lin Yi said tiredly. "But marriage is a partnership. I can't be the only one making compromises forever." "I've compromised a lot," Eric said, agitated. "I learned Chinese. I eat Chinese food. I put up with your mom bossing us around for 2 whole months." "You put up with her?" Lin Yi suddenly stood up. "She's my mother. She came all the way here to help me during postpartum. And you?" Their raised voices woke Erica, and her cries came through the baby monitor. Both of them stopped instantly. Lin Yi turned to go to the baby's room, but Eric stopped her. "I'll go," he said, suddenly calm. "You can finish writing your job application." That sentence hurt more than any shouting. Lin Yi stood frozen, listening as Eric softly hummed a Swedish lullaby in the nursery, a song his mother had sung to him when he was young, now passed down to their daughter, a purely Swedish tradition. In that moment, Lin Yi felt an overwhelming loneliness. She closed the laptop and walked out to the balcony. The night sky over Stockholm was clear and full of stars, but there was no northern light. She thought of that night 2 years ago in Kiruna, Eric's promise under the aurora, and her once unwavering belief in intercultural love. The next day was Saturday. Eric was gone early, leaving only a note saying he had taken Erica to the park. Lin Yi was alone at home when her phone suddenly rang, a video interview invitation from the Chinese company. She hesitated, then clicked accept. The interview went very well. Mr. Chen, the CEO, was especially interested in her international experience and even offered to help her apply for China's high-level overseas talent program. "We understand you need time to arrange your family matters," Mr. Chen said at the end, "but we hope to get your decision soon. The project is about to launch." After the call ended, Lin Yi sat on the couch in a daze. This decision would completely change the course of her life. Whichever path she chose would come with some form of sacrifice. That afternoon, Eric returned with Erica. To Lin Yi's surprise, he was also carrying a bag from a Chinese supermarket. "I tried making red braised pork," he said shyly, "using the recipe your mom left behind on the dinner table." The slightly dark-colored pork gave off a familiar aroma. Eric had also cooked rice and even clumsily set the table with chopsticks. Erica sat in her high chair, curiously grabbing a small piece of meat and trying to put it in her mouth. "Careful. It's hot." Lin Yi instinctively reached out, only to see Eric had already gently blown on the meat to cool it. "I downloaded some Chinese nursery rhymes," Eric said without looking at her, focusing on feeding their daughter. "We can play them for half an hour after dinner every day." Lin Yu's eyes suddenly welled up. This was Eric's way of apologizing, not with words, but with actions, clumsy, but sincere. I had the interview today, she said softly, for that job in China. Eric's hand paused for a moment, then continued feeding Erica. How did it go? They really want me. Lin Yu looked directly into his eyes. But I told them I need to discuss it with my family first. Eric finally looked up, his blue eyes filled with complex emotions. What's your decision? I don't know. Lin Yu answered honestly. I won that career opportunity, but I also want the three of us to stay together. Silence spread across the dinner table. Erica slapped her plate impatiently, babbling incoherently. I looked into the Swedish company's China branch. Eric suddenly said, they have an office in Shanghai. I could apply for a transfer. Lin Yu's eyes widened. Are you saying you're willing to move to China? Not permanently, Eric said cautiously. Maybe a 2-year contract. That way, you can explore your job opportunity in China, and we can let Erica experience Chinese culture. If it doesn't work out, we can always come back. The compromise was so reasonable that Lin Yu didn't know how to respond. She had expected a heated debate over whether to stay or leave, but Eric had already been thinking about a solution. When did you look into the transfer? She asked softly. Last night, Eric said with a wry smile. After you fell asleep. I thought a lot about what really matters. Lin Yu walked around the table and embraced him tightly. Eric still smelled of red braised pork, mingled with his usual Nordic forest cologne, a strange but comforting mix, just like their life together. Imperfect, but real. We can give it a try, she whispered in his ear, and adjust if it doesn't work. Eric nodded and gently kissed her forehead. Like you said, marriage is a two-way street. It can't always be just one person making compromises. Outside, dusk was falling. Erica waved her sauce-covered hands and giggled. In that ordinary dinner moment, Lin Yu felt as if 3 possible futures were unfolding before her eyes, one in Sweden, one in China, and a third path still undefined. But for now, she knew only one thing: they were willing to explore it together, and that was enough.
Chapter 5. Vows Beneath the Northern Lights. By the time the plane landed at Pudong International Airport, Lin Yu's palms were already sweaty. It had been 3 years she hadn't returned to China since she got pregnant. Looking out the cabin window, early summer Shanghai was shrouded in a light haze. The skyline was more jagged than she remembered, with countless unfamiliar skyscrapers rising from the ground. Mommy, are we there yet? Erica squirmed in her arms, her golden curls messy from sleep. We're here, sweetheart. Lin Yu kissed her daughter's forehead, catching the familiar scent of children's shampoo. 3-year-old Erica had inherited Eric's blonde hair and her almond-shaped eyes, a striking mixed-race child who drew attention wherever she went. Eric retrieved their backpack from the overhead bin, the dark circles under his eyes clearly visible. The 12-hour flight had been tough on the whole family. Erica had cried through half of it due to the pressure in her ears, while the older Chinese women seated in front and behind them had spent the entire time casting disapproving glances at the incompetent foreign family. Did we bring all the documents? Lin Yu double-checked. Your work permit, Erica's visa, vaccination records. All in the folder. Eric patted the bag slung across his chest. Relax, we're just moving, not infiltrating enemy territory. The immigration hall buzzed with noise. While waiting in line, Lin Yu noticed the curious looks constantly being cast their way, some aimed at Erica, others at tall, blonde Eric. She instinctively straightened her posture, using her body to shield her family from some of the stares. When the customs officer flipped through Eric's passport, he raised an eyebrow. First time in China? Third, Eric replied in Chinese, but this time we're staying for 2 years. The officer looked up in surprise at the fluent pronunciation, then smiled. Welcome to Shanghai. The apartment Lin Yu had rented was in Jing'an District, 2 bedrooms and a living room, noticeably smaller than their home in Stockholm, yet 30% more expensive in monthly rent. As they opened the door, a musty smell hit them clearly. The agent hadn't aired the place out beforehand. It's smaller than in the photos, Eric said, glancing around, trying to keep a neutral tone. That's Shanghai, Lin Yu said, setting down her suitcase and opening the windows to let in some fresh air. Space is a luxury. Erica excitedly ran through the empty living room, her footsteps echoing loudly on the bare floorboards. "Where's my room?" she asked in Swedish. Lin Yu pointed to the smaller bedroom. "This'll be your princess castle." That evening, while shopping for essentials at a nearby supermarket, Lin Yu was overcome by a strange feeling. The shelves filled with Chinese products should have been familiar, but instead felt subtly foreign. 3 years abroad had changed her habits. She caught herself comparing prices between Swedish and Chinese goods, hesitating between imported and domestic baby formula, and even stood in front of the soy sauce aisle for 5 minutes. Overwhelmed by the sheer number of choices, she hadn't realized China had so many varieties of soy sauce. When she returned home, Eric was trying to order food delivery on his phone. While Erica cried on the floor, her teddy bear hadn't yet been unpacked from the luggage. "Food delivery gets here in under 30 minutes, Lin Yu said, putting down the grocery bags and pulling out the worn teddy bear from a suitcase. "They'll deliver anything, even groceries." Eric whistled. Sweden could learn from this efficiency. That remark sparked an odd sense of pride in Lin Yu, like China had finally earned her husband's approval in some way. But the feeling quickly turned to self-mockery. When did I start needing validation for my homeland? The first week passed in a blur of chaos. Lin Yu's new company had given her 3 days to adjust to the time difference. But in reality, it took a full week just to get the basics in order. Every day was packed with errands: setting up the gas, applying for a residence permit, looking for an international kindergarten. The language barrier rendered Eric practically helpless, despite his basic conversational Mandarin. "Why does the bank need paper proof for everything?" Eric asked one night, frustrated, tossing a stack of documents aside. "In Sweden, everything's handled online. China values things in black and white," Lin Yu explained. "And personal connections matter more than rules. I'll go with you tomorrow. Once you get to know a client manager, it'll be easier." Eric shook his head. "It's so inefficient." "That's called guangxi," Lin Yu said with a strained smile. "You'll understand eventually." On Monday morning, Lin Yu dressed carefully and headed to her new job. The AI startup, DeepThink, was based in a gleaming office building in Pudong. Most employees looked no older than 30. The receptionist eyed her curiously. "Are you Director Lin?" "Mr. Chen is waiting in the meeting room." Inside, 7 or 8 people were already seated. Mr. Chen was texting on his phone. When he saw Lin Yu enter, he looked up and smiled. "Dr. Lin is here. We'll start in a moment." Then he went back to typing. Lin Yu glanced at her watch. It was 9:05 a.m., the scheduled start time. At Nordstrom, her former Swedish employer, meetings started punctually and she was used to arriving 5 minutes early. But 10 minutes passed and half the participants were still missing. Mr. Chen showed no sign of beginning. "We usually wait until everyone arrives," a female colleague whispered beside her. Mr. Chen doesn't like repeating himself. When the meeting finally started at 9:25, Lin Yu had already reorganized her slides 3 times. Her presentation was pushed to the end as Mr. Chen insisted on discussing more urgent client issues first. By the time it was her turn, it was nearly lunchtime and half the room was staring at their phones. "Sweden's work culture is so much more efficient," Lin Yu complained to Eric over dinner. "In China, everything takes detours, even meetings are so casual." Eric was trying to pick up a peanut with chopsticks. "Every country has its own rhythm. At least your salary is higher than in Sweden." That was true. Lin Yu was earning nearly triple her Nordstrom salary, not counting stock options. But the strange blend of hyper-efficiency and bureaucratic delay left her disoriented. The company could work overnight for a project, but a reimbursement could take 2 weeks. Her colleagues were brilliant, yet no one dared challenge the boss in meetings. 2 weeks later, Eric's transfer to his company's China branch was finalized. On his first day, he wore a crisply ironed shirt to work, but came home looking like a defeated soldier. "They put me in charge of APAC clients," he slumped on the couch. "But all the important meetings are in Chinese, I can only catch half of it." Lin Yu handed him a cup of tea. "Want me to help you find a language partner?" "No," Eric shook his head. "What I need is respect. If they know there are foreigners on the team, why not hold meetings in English? In Sweden, we always accommodate non-Swedish speakers." Lin Yu couldn't answer. She remembered her early days at Nordstrom when not being a native English speaker had put her at a disadvantage. Now the roles were reversed, but the challenge felt the same. That weekend, they took Erica to Century Park. Like he used to in Sweden, Eric let Erica run freely across the grass while he sat on a bench. Before long, a security guard with a red armband walked over. "Watch your kid no stepping on the grass." Lin Yu quickly apologized and called Erica back. But the real awkwardness came when Eric took Erica to the slides. Several Chinese grandmothers surrounded him. "Foreign dads are so careless," one in a floral shirt said loudly enough for Eric to hear. "Catch a cold." "Exactly," another chimed in. "He's not even helping her on that tall slide. What if she falls?" Eric didn't understand the words, but he could read the tone in faces. He picked up Erica and walked stiffly back to Lin Yu. "We should go." In the cab ride home, Eric stayed silent. Later, as he showered, Lin Yu heard him curse in Swedish from the bathroom. The pressure of cultural adjustment showed in every aspect. Eric complained the air pollution hurt his throat. Erica often went hungry at kindergarten because she couldn't eat spicy food. Lin Yu felt constantly drained, switching between Western directness and Chinese subtlety. Most unexpectedly, she began to miss certain aspects of Sweden: fresh air, orderly cues, clear rules. One stifling July night, Lin Yu came home late from work to find Eric and Erica building blocks on the floor. On the table were 3 bowls of instant noodles, yet another failed cooking attempt by Eric. "I signed up for a Chinese class today," Eric said, handing her a pair of chopsticks. "At a language school near the office." Lin Yu looked up, surprised. "Really?" "Can't stay illiterate forever," Eric made a face. "Besides, Erica's Chinese is already better than mine." "It's embarrassing." That small decision felt like a candle in the dark. It gave Lin Yu hope. Maybe adjustment takes time, but at least Eric was willing to try. In August, Lin Yu's mother came to visit from Ningbo. It was her first time offering to visit since Erica was born. Lin Yu felt both nervous and excited. She still remembered how things had ended badly in Sweden last time. When the doorbell rang, it was Eric who answered. Lin's mother stood at the door, arms full of gifts and specialty foods. She looked noticeably thinner and walked with some difficulty. "Mom," Lin Yu rushed forward to take the bags. "What happened to your leg?" "A minor stroke," her mother said lightly. "I'm mostly recovered." Only then did Lin Yu notice the slight droop in her mother's mouth and the dragging of her right foot. A wave of guilt swept over her. She hadn't even known her mother had been ill. Dinner was homemade Ningbo cuisine: salt and mustard fish soup, braised bamboo shoots, and red braised ribs. Eric clumsily tried to use chopsticks, failing several times. To everyone's surprise, Lin's mother calmly handed him a spoon. "It's normal for foreigners to struggle with chopsticks," she said without her usual sharpness. "Just take your time." That small gesture of kindness lightened the atmosphere at the table. Erica chattered in a mix of Swedish and Chinese as she showed her grandma her new toys. To Lin Yu's surprise, her mother listened patiently and even tried to mimic a few Swedish words. The next day was Saturday. Lin's mother suggested teaching Eric how to make tangyan. "We eat tangyan on the winter solstice," she said while kneading the dough, "because it symbolizes reunion." Lin Yu translated, watching in surprise as Eric earnestly followed each step kneading the dough, filling the balls, rolling them round. When he finally managed to make one that wasn't completely lopsided, Lin's mother actually smiled. "Not bad. Better than Yu Yu's first attempt." The afternoon sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the 3 of them. Tiny flower particles danced in the light. Lin Yu suddenly realized this was the first time they'd felt like a real family. No arguments, no culture clashes, just the simple warmth of togetherness. That night, Lin's mother quietly said to her, "Eric's a good man, at least he's willing to learn. I know women who married foreigners whose husbands never learned to use chopsticks in their entire lives." That brief acknowledgement brought tears to Lin Yu's eyes. She remembered how her mother had fiercely opposed her studying abroad during university, how she'd even threatened to cut ties when she decided to marry Eric. And now, the stubborn Ningbo woman was compromising in her own quiet way. In early September, Lin Yu received an unexpected email. A headhunter from a top tech company in Silicon Valley reached out, offering her a senior research position. The salary was double what she currently earned. "They read your paper at Nordstrom," the technical director said enthusiastically during a video interview. "It's exactly the kind of cross-cultural perspective we need." After the call, Lin Yu sat staring at Shanghai's glittering night skyline. It was a rare opportunity: higher pay, cutting-edge research, a truly international team. But it also meant uprooting again, Erica would face another cultural shock just as she'd adapted to China, and Eric's hard-earned professional connections would be left behind. She spent several nights unable to sleep, weighing the pros and cons in the dark. One late night, she quietly got up and stepped out onto the balcony, gazing at the lights of the Bund. 3 years ago, she had left Sweden for career growth. Now, just as she was finding her footing in China, another opportunity called. But this time, she was no longer free to go wherever she pleased. She was a wife, a mother, the anchor of a cross-cultural family. That weekend, she finally summoned the courage to tell Eric about the offer. Silicon Valley? Eric set down his Chinese textbook. When did this happen? Last week, Lin Yu replied carefully. I haven't decided yet. I wanted to hear your thoughts first. Eric was silent for a long time, so long that Lin Yu began to worry he was upset. Finally, he looked up, his ice blue eyes filled with complex emotions. From a career perspective, it's definitely a great opportunity, but we have to think about Erica, Eric continued. She's just settled into her kindergarten here, made friends. Moving again would be hard for her. Lin Yu nodded. I thought the same. And your Mandarin is still in its early stages? My job can be remote, Eric suddenly said. At least partially. The time difference between Sweden and California is much smaller than with China. That answer surprised Lin Yu. She'd expected Eric to oppose the idea. After all, he had already worked so hard to adapt to life in China. You mean you're open to considering it? I mean, don't automatically give it up because of me and Erica, Eric said, taking her hand. If it's something you truly want, we'll find a way. In that moment, Lin Yu finally understood what a true partner was, not someone who always gives in, nor someone who insists on their own way, but someone who helps you find balance between both. Let me think it over a bit more, she said softly. Maybe not now. Maybe when Erica's older, when your Mandarin's better. In October, Eric's Chinese language class held a graduation ceremony at the language school. Lin Yu and Erica sat in the parent section watching a group of foreign adults take turns performing in Chinese. When Eric stepped up to the microphone, Lin Yu held her breath. Today, I will recite a poem, he said in heavily accented Mandarin. Quiet Night Thoughts by Li Bai. Before my bed, the moonlight is bright. He pronounced each character slowly and earnestly. He mispronounced Di as Ibe and Ju as Duo, but he finished the entire poem. At the end, he looked toward Lin Yu and said in Chinese, "This poem is for my wife and daughter." I love you. Amid applause, Lin Yu's vision blurred with tears. That's my daddy. Erica shouted proudly, and the surrounding Chinese parents smiled warmly at them. On the subway ride home, Eric was still glowing with excitement. The teacher said I'm improving quickly and suggested I try the HSK Level 3 exam. You'll definitely pass. Lin Yu leaned against his shoulder. I'm so proud of you. That night, Lin Yu wrote a polite rejection email to the headhunter in Silicon Valley. At the same time, she submitted a proposal to Mr. Chen suggesting the company launch an internal cross-cultural communication training program to help foreign employees and Chinese teams collaborate more effectively. Your international experience is exactly what we need. Mr. Chen approved the plan without hesitation. Let's start the pilot next month. December in Shanghai was bone-chillingly damp, but Lin Yu felt a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. On Sunday morning, she woke to find Eric and Erica missing from the bedroom. Laughter and a familiar aroma came from the kitchen. Eric was flipping scallion pancakes, and Erica was helping by getting flour all over her face. On the table were 3 bowls of soy milk and a plate of sliced youtiao. Morning, Sleeping Beauty, Eric said in Mandarin. Breakfast is almost ready. Lin Yu stood at the kitchen door, watching the Swedish man who once didn't even know how to use a rice cooker, now expertly flipping pancakes with chopsticks. Sunlight streamed in, bathing the scene in gold. At that moment, she understood. Home isn't a place. It's made up of tiny, precious moments like this one, in snowy Stockholm nights. In Shanghai's morning light, in every moment they chose each other. Chose understanding. Chose to grow together. Chapter 6. Vows Beneath the Northern Lights. The school admissions brochure lay spread out on the dining table like a battleground neither parent could ignore. Lin Yu circled the best nearby public elementary school with a red marker, while Eric browsed international school websites on his iPad. 5-year-old Erica was playing with Legos on the floor, blissfully unaware she was about to become the focal point of her parents' cultural tug-of-war. Shanghai Experimental School has one of the top 3 admission rates in the city. Lin Yu pointed at the stats in the brochure. They start English in grade 1, plus they offer Math Olympia prep classes. Eric frowned. Why does a 5-year-old need to study advanced math? In Sweden, kids don't even learn to read until 7. This is China, Lin Yu said, pressing the marker tip hard into the paper. Erica needs to adapt to the competitive environment. Why not an international school? Eric pulled up a page. This IB school offers a bilingual program and focuses more on creativity. Lin Yu glanced at the tuition and inhaled sharply. 200,000 yuan a year? Public schools are practically free. There's a reason it's expensive, Eric argued. At least she won't be doing homework until midnight every day. Suddenly, Erica looked up. What's homework? The question left them both silent. Lin Yu recalled her own childhood, staying up late copying characters, while Eric thought of his carefree days exploring forests. 2 completely different educational philosophies collided wordlessly in their Shanghai apartment. We should visit the schools in person, Lin Yu finally compromised. Then we can decide. First stop, Shanghai Experimental School. The tidy campus buzzed with order. First graders sat upright, reading aloud in perfect unison, none distracted, none fidgeting. The principal proudly showed off the wall of honors. Our students have won the city's math competition 5 years in a row. Eric crouched to look at the crafts on the classroom wall, 30 nearly identical paper rabbits lined up neatly. They were all told to make the same thing? He whispered to Lin Yu. It's called standardized training, she replied, though a flicker of discomfort stirred inside her. The international school was a world apart. Its hallways were filled with colorful, wildly different children's art. Inside the classrooms, students sat in circles discussing topics. A blonde girl ran up and introduced herself to Erica in fluent Chinese. The 2 quickly became playmates. We encourage individualized learning, the admissions officer said with a smile. There are no standardized tests. Each child learns at their own pace. In the taxi home, Erica declared happily that she liked the school with lots of colors. Lin Yu stared out the window at the blur of the cityscape, conflicted. Rationally, she knew the international school fit Erica's personality better. But deep down, a voice warned her, if you give up on Chinese education now, your daughter may never truly understand or belong to Chinese culture. We could compromise, Eric said suddenly. Choose a bilingual private school that teaches the Chinese curriculum but also embraces Western teaching styles. Lin Yu was about to respond when her phone rang. The screen lit up. Home Ningbo. Her heart clenched. Yu, her father's voice was unusually urgent. Your mom had another stroke. This time it's more serious. The doctor says surgery may be needed. The hospital hallway seemed longer than Ling Yu remembered. Her heels clicked rapidly on the tiled floor. Eric followed close behind, carrying a half-asleep Erica. When she pushed open the hospital room door, she saw her mother lying under pale sheets, the right side of her face clearly drooping, and 4 like a transparent snake curling around her arm. Mom. Lin Yu gripped her mother's weak left hand. The same hand that used to knead perfect dough was now curled and trembling. Her mother opened her eyes slightly and murmured something. Lin Yu could only barely make out the word child. Erica's doing great. She leaned into her mother's ear. We brought her to see you. The attending doctor, a middle-aged man, spoke in a professional, detached tone. Second stroke infarction in the right basal ganglia. Her condition is stable for now, but long-term rehabilitation will be necessary. Rehabilitation? What exactly does that involve? Lin Yu took notes in her journal. Acupuncture, physical therapy, speech training. The doctor flipped through her chart. But most importantly, family support. Stroke patients are prone to depression. Outside the office, Lin Yu leaned against the wall, suddenly dizzy. Tomorrow she was supposed to lead a major client meeting. Now she faced the painful decision of whether to take leave to care for her mother. Her phone buzzed. A message from her assistant. Final version of the presentation slides. She stared at the screen, her vision blurring. Hey, Eric's warm hand pressed gently against her back. Tell me what I can do. She turned and buried her face in his chest, tears soaking silently into his shirt. In that moment, she was no longer the poised career woman, just a scared daughter afraid of losing her mother. I want to take 2 weeks off, she choked, but the project's at a critical stage. Then take the time, Eric stroked her hair. Erica and I can move to Ningbo with you. I looked it up. There's a good rehab center nearby. Linyu looked up at him. What about your work? I'll request to work remotely. Eric wiped her tears. My boss will understand. Family comes first. That sentence was like a key, unlocking something deep inside her. In Swedish culture, family comes first wasn't just a phrase, it was a lived truth. She suddenly remembered being sick as a child. Her mother would drop everything to care for her, while her father always said, "I'm busy, let your mom handle it." The next morning, Linyu requested leave from her boss, then returned alone to Shanghai to gather essentials. When she opened the door to their apartment, a strange feeling washed over her. Eric had already packed 3 suitcases. On the fridge, he had stuck a detailed checklist: Erica's snacks, copies of her mom's medical records, address of the Ningbo Rehab Center. This man who once couldn't even find his own socks was now methodically managing a family relocation. The rehabilitation center in Ningbo had a beautiful environment, but Linyu's mother made little progress. She refused to cooperate with the therapist and remained silent and withdrawn. Until the 3rd day, when Erica climbed onto her bed with a set of colored markers. "Grandma, teach me to draw a fish," the little girl said in a mix of Chinese and Swedish. "Daddy says you draw the best fish." A flicker of light returned to Lynn's mother's cloudy eyes. She took the marker with trembling fingers and on Erica's paper drew a wobbly fish. Erica cheered and immediately asked for a turtle, a crab, a shrimp. Without realizing it, she had completed the upper limb exercises the therapist had been trying to get her to do for days. "Children are the best medicine," a nurse whispered to Linyu. "Your mom finally has something to live for." That night, at a small inn near the hospital, Linyu and Eric sat down to discuss Erica's schooling. The deadline was next week. A decision had to be made. "I've thought about it." Linyu rubbed her temples, exhausted. "Maybe international school really does suit Erica better." Eric shook his head. "No, we need to reconsider. Your mom might need us in Ningbo long term, and the options here are limited. But public school competition is brutal." "I researched education in Ningbo." Eric opened his laptop. "This private bilingual school looks promising, blends Chinese and Western methods, and it's close to the rehab center." Linyu was stunned by the well-organized comparison chart on the screen. He'd even listed student-teacher ratios and extracurricular programs for each school. This man, who once scoffed at Chinese-style education, was now seriously studying how to find a balance between East and West. "When did you do all this?" "Last night after you fell asleep," Eric smiled. "I learned a Chinese phrase, yin di zi." Linyu's mother's condition gradually stabilized, but the doctor recommended at least 1 more month of inpatient rehabilitation. Linyu had to return to Shanghai to deal with a backlog of work, leaving Eric and Erica behind in Ningbo. Before she left, she unexpectedly saw Eric watching traditional Chinese medicine wellness videos on his phone. "What are you learning?" "Rehabilitation techniques from TCM." Eric looked a little sheepish. "Your mom said the Western physical therapy was too painful, so I thought I'd try learning Chinese massage." "I mean, I've got time anyway." Linyu suddenly remembered how her mother once mocked Eric, saying, "Foreigners don't understand filial piety." Yet now this foreign son-in-law was earnestly learning how to care for his mother-in-law using traditional Chinese methods. Life can be ironic sometimes. Back at the office, Linyu was immediately swept into a whirlwind. 2 weeks of absence meant she'd missed key project milestones. Her team had shifted directions without her knowledge. Worse still, President Chen seemed to be quietly minimizing her role in the project. "Ah, Dr. Lin is back," he said casually when they ran into each other in the elevator. "Everything settled at home?" His indifferent attitude stood in stark contrast to her experience in Sweden, where taking time off for family was met with understanding and support. Linyu suddenly realized, behind the feigned efficiency of the Chinese workplace was a startling disregard for personal life. Friday night, she took the high-speed train back to Ningbo. Exhausted, she pushed open the rehab center door only to find a heartwarming scene. Eric sat by the bedside, reading the newspaper to her mother in clumsy Chinese. Erica was at a small table by the window, carefully tracing Chinese characters. And Linyu's mother, the same woman who once strongly opposed cross-cultural marriage, was teaching Eric how to make wanins, even though each one he made was oddly shaped. "You use back," her mother said, clearer in speech than the week before. "Eric's learning fast." That simple comment brought tears to Lin Yu's eyes. Her mother had never praised Eric to his face, not even when he moved the whole family to China. Over the weekend, Lin Yu took over caregiving duties so Eric could take Erica to an open house at the bilingual school. When they returned, Eric was animated as he described how the school blended Chinese and Western teaching methods, literacy and math in the mornings, project-based learning in the afternoons, structured handwriting practice alongside creative art classes. They even teach tea ceremony and calligraphy. Eric flipped through his phone photos. Look, Erica wrote the character. Lin Yu looked at her daughter's proud smile in the photo and the lopsided character filled with childlike charm. Maybe education doesn't have to be either or, she thought. Just like her marriage, it was always about finding a third path between two cultures. On enrollment day, Lin Yu took the day off to accompany her daughter. The parent orientation was uniquely designed, first a traditional Chinese flag-raising ceremony, then a Western-style student exhibition. The biggest surprise was the performance section. Parents from different countries were invited to share something from their native cultures. My daddy's going to recite a Tang poem, Erica proudly told every classmate she met. Lin Yu's eyes widened. You what? Since when? Secret, Eric winked. It's a surprise. When Eric stood at the center of the auditorium and recited Spring Morning in flawless Mandarin, the room fell silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. Even more impressively, he followed with a Swedish translation, explaining how different languages give poetry different shades of beauty. Cultural differences aren't barriers, he concluded. They're windows through which our children can see a broader world. Tears welled in Lin Yu's eyes as she joined the applause. This man who once claimed Chinese was too hard had now become a bridge between cultures. And the gleaming eyes of the mixed-race children below seemed to reflect a new possibility. They didn't have to choose between being Chinese or Swedish. They could be both. After the event, the principal personally approached them. Mr. Johansson's performance was outstanding. We're forming an international parent committee. Would you both be interested in joining? On the way back to the hospital, Lin Yu linked arms with Eric. You know, you made me rethink a lot today about education, about identity, ... Me too. Eric kissed the top of her head. Seeing all those mixed-race kids, I realized Erica doesn't need to choose a side. She can embrace both. Lin Yu's mother made faster progress than expected. When she managed to walk 10 steps on her own, the whole family, including the nurse, burst into applause. That night, Lin's mother took out a small embroidered pouch from under her pillow. You, Eric, she said with newly recovered clarity. This is for you. Lin Yu opened the pouch to find a translucent jade bracelet, her grandmother's dowry, passed down to her mother. Lin Yu had seen it on her mother's wrist countless times growing up. Mom! This is too precious, ... Take it, her mother insisted. My right hand isn't strong enough to wear it anymore. Give it to Erica or your second child if you have one. Lin Yu suddenly understood this wasn't just the passing on of a family heirloom. It was her mother's final silent blessing of their cross-cultural marriage. She turned teary-eyed to Eric and saw that his eyes, too, were red. Thank you, Mom, he said solemnly in Mandarin. I'll take good care of it and give it to Erica when she's grown. Her mother smiled, a rare moment of warmth. Your Chinese has improved a lot. The day before her mother's discharge, Lin Yu received a call from President Chen. He asked if she'd consider taking on a project in Singapore. It would require a 6-month residency, he added, but it's a strong opportunity for promotion. In the past, Lin Yu would have said yes without hesitation. But now, watching her mother practicing with chopsticks and Eric gently braiding Erica's hair, she felt for the first time the tension between ambition and real happiness. I'll need to discuss it with my family, she replied calmly. That evening, in their in-room, Lin Yu told Eric about the offer. To her surprise, Eric didn't oppose it immediately. Singapore has great education, he said thoughtfully. It's close to China, so we can still visit your mom. My company might even let me work remotely. You mean ... you're open to the idea? She asked in surprise. I'm just saying, don't automatically turn down an opportunity because of family. Eric mimicked her tone from months ago. If you really want this challenge, we'll find a way. It mirrored a conversation they'd had before moving to China, only this time, their roles were reversed. Lin Yu suddenly realized that true partnership is a dynamic balance. Sometimes one compromises, sometimes the other, but both always look for solutions together. Honestly, I'm not sure I want it anymore, she admitted. 6 months ago, I would have jumped at it. But now, after everything with Mom, I'm asking myself what really matters. Eric took her hand. Whatever you decide, we're with you. In the end, Lin Yu turned down the full-time Singapore offer but proposed to support the project through regular business trips instead of relocation. President Chen reluctantly agreed but hinted it might impact her promotion. It's worth it, she told Eric on the way home. Erica needs a stable environment. Mom still needs follow-ups. Some things matter more than titles. That weekend, they took Erica to her new school. As Lin Yu stood at the school gate watching her daughter bounce into her mixed classroom with excitement, she felt a rare sense of clarity. This place wasn't Sweden. Nor was it traditional China. It was a new world for Erica's generation, a space for global citizens. That night, as Lin Yu sorted documents in the study, she found a sticky note Eric had left on her laptop. No matter which path we take, we're a family sweet in snow, China's moonlight, and our aurora always together. Outside, Shanghai's night sky was unusually clear. There was no aurora but a bright moon hung high, illuminating this unexpected, harmonious home built from two cultures.
Chapter 7. Vows. Beneath the northern lights, raindrops tapped against the cafe's glass windows, trailing into winding rivulets. Lin Yi stared at her laptop screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard for a long time without typing a single word. It had been 2 weeks since she resigned, yet the business proposal for cross-cultural training remained stuck on page 3. Mind if I sit here? All the other tables are full. The French-accented English pulled Lin Yi out of her thoughts. She looked up to see a blonde woman holding a sleeping mixed-race baby with an overstuffed diaper bag slung over her shoulder. Of course. Lin Yu quickly gathered her scattered papers. Thanks, the woman carefully set down her coffee cup, trying not to disturb the sleeping infant. I'm Isabel. I've been in Shanghai for 3 years from Lyon. Lin Yu. She introduced herself briefly, then hesitated before adding, my husband's Swedish. Isabel's eyes lit up. Oh, you're in an international marriage too. She switched to choppy Chinese. We have a common language. The pun made Lin Yu smile. Over the next half hour, she listened to Isabel vent about the challenges of raising a child as a French mom in China, how her mother-in-law insisted on using cloth diapers instead of disposables, how her husband didn't understand the importance of memorizing Chinese classics, and how the preschool teacher criticized her son for being too active. Sometimes I feel like a cultural traitor. Isabel stirred her now cold coffee. If I raise my son the French way, he won't fit in here. But if I go fully Chinese, I feel like I'm betraying half of who he is. Lin Yi's fingers tapped unconsciously on the rim of her cup. Isabel's words were like a mirror, reflecting her own struggle. Erica had been in bilingual school for 3 months and seemed to be adapting well. Yet the undercurrents of cultural identity never ceased. Just last week, her daughter asked why she couldn't have straight black hair like her fully Chinese classmates. So how do you handle it? Isabel asked eagerly. The culture clashes, the identity stuff. We're still figuring it out. Lin Yi replied honestly. But in that moment, an idea flashed in her mind. What if she and Eric's cross-cultural experience could help other families? What if all that struggle could be turned into professional guidance? The clink of her coffee cup hitting the saucer seemed to snap her into action. Lin Yi closed her laptop abruptly. Isabel, would you be willing to join a cross-cultural parenting workshop? It's free, just a way to help me test an idea. 2 weeks later, Lin Yi's parenting consultancy, Aurora Bridge, was officially registered. The office was her study at home. Her first batch of clients were Isabel and 12 other international families she'd recruited through a local expat mom group. You need a business partner, Eric said as he watched Lin Yi burning the midnight oil to prep the workshop materials. He had just put Erica to bed, still carrying the scent of her kid's shampoo. It's still small scale. Lin Yi rubbed her sore shoulders. No, I mean it. Eric sat beside her. Your strength is comparing Chinese and Western education. Mine's cross-cultural communication. We've been living this for 5 years now, haven't we? Lin Yi turned to look at him. In his blue eyes was no hint of sarcasm, only firm support. In that moment, She understood why Sweden was known for its gender equality. This man had never believed parenting or housework was solely a woman's duty, and never saw her professional ambition as a threat to her role as a mother. "You'd really go into business with me?" she asked softly. Eric answered with a long, loving kiss. Aurora Bridges' first workshop was held at a community center on the weekend. Lin Yue prepared a PowerPoint comparing Chinese and Western education. Eric designed interactive activities to let parents share child-rearing insights from their respective cultures. The room began to buzz with excitement as Chinese mothers listened in disbelief to how Swedish preschools encourage kids to play outdoors in the rain and snow, while Western parents eagerly jotted down early education principles like a child's future is shaped by age 3. "We don't need to pick one side and reject the other," Lin Yue said during her closing remarks. "The key to cross-cultural parenting is finding your family's unique point of integration." After the workshop, Isabel hugged her with excitement. "This is exactly what we need. You should turn this into a full-course series." On the subway ride home, Lin Yue and Eric excitedly replayed every moment, like actors after a successful premiere. Erica dozed between them, clutching a cartoon sticker a little French friend had given her. "Next month, we could do something on festivals and traditions," Eric noted on his phone. "How to blend Chinese New Year with Christmas." Leaning on his shoulder, Lin Yue felt a strange but satisfying sense of fulfillment, more than she ever did earning a high salary at a tech firm. Maybe professional success should evolve with each stage of life, but the art of cross-cultural balance isn't solved with one successful workshop. At dinner the next day, Erica suddenly put down her chopsticks. "Mama, am I Chinese or Swedish?" Her little face was unusually serious. Lin Yue and Eric exchanged a glance. "You're both," Lin Yue said gently. "You have half Chinese and half Swedish blood." "But Li Ming said I can't be both." Erica frowned. "He said you have to choose, like picking a passport." Eric squatted beside his daughter. "Sweetheart, you don't have to choose. You can love Chinese New Year and St. Lucia Day. You can eat dumplings and cinnamon rolls. But my classmates say I speak Chinese with an accent." Erica's eyes shimmered with tears. "And I don't know all the songs they sing." Lin Yue felt her chest tighten like an invisible fist. She should have seen this coming among children. Everything is black and white, and being mixed can be deeply confusing. She opened her mouth to explain the difference between nationality and culture, but Erica had already come to her own conclusion. "I told Li Ming I'm Erica," she said proudly, lifting her chin. "Just Erica." That simple yet profound answer left Lin Yue with a lump in her throat. Her 5-year-old daughter had, in her own way, grasped the essence of identity. It's not a binary choice, but a unique fusion. That night, Lin Yue shared the story in the Aurora Bridge parent group. Within an hour, a dozen parents replied with similar experiences and reflections. Isabel wrote back, "This is exactly why we need you. Only someone who's walked this path can guide the rest of us." Just as their venture found momentum, family life brought another shift. Lin Yue's mother decided to move to Shanghai permanently. "The doctor says I need regular checkups," she said on the phone, her tone softer than usual. "And Erica's starting piano lessons. I can teach her." Lin Yue knew it was just an excuse. Ningbo had great hospitals, and music lessons could easily be taught by professionals. The real reason was her mother's stroke had made her realize how precious time was. She didn't want to miss her granddaughter growing up. That understanding filled Lin Yue with both sorrow and warmth. On moving day, Eric rented a large van and personally drove to Ningbo to fetch his mother-in-law and her 7 suitcases, including Lin Yue's childhood electronic piano. Lin Yue stayed home, preparing her mother's favorite Ningbo dishes: salted mustard fish soup, braised bamboo shoots, and sweet fermented rice dumplings. As her mother stepped into the newly arranged apartment, her eyes immediately locked onto the piano in the corner of the living room. "Put it there," she directed the movers. "The lighting's good, it's perfect for practice." Erica excitedly circled the new piano, banging random keys and creating a discordant mess. "Grandma, teach me. Teach me now." Her grandmother laughed, the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes softening. "All right. First, posture. Sit up straight. Raise your wrists. fingers like you're holding an egg. Standing at the kitchen door, Lin Yi watched the scene, a swell of emotion rising in her chest. Her own piano memories weren't pleasant. Countless forced practice sessions, red marks from the ruler when she played a wrong note. But now, her mother taught Erica with such patience. It was as if she had become a different person. Maybe people change. Maybe times change, she thought, turning down the heat on the soup pot. The initial harmony was soon shattered by reality. Lin's mother's traditional teaching methods clashed once again with Eric's Western ideals. She emphasized discipline and repetitive practice, while he believed music should be fun first and foremost. "She's too young," Eric protested when Lin's mother insisted that Erica practice basic finger exercises for an hour every day. In Sweden, children don't formally learn instruments before age 7. If the fundamentals aren't solid, it'll be impossible to fix later, Lin's mother said in her Ningbo dialect to Lin. Look at Lang Lang's dad, he was strict. That's why Lang Lang is what he is today. Caught in the middle, Lin felt conflicted. She appreciated her mother's good intentions and agreed on the importance of fundamentals, but seeing Erica tearfully repeat those scales brought back childhood shadows. The conflict exploded one Saturday morning. Lin's mother discovered that Erica had secretly shortened her practice time and imposed extra tasks as punishment. The little girl cried bitterly, drawing Eric's attention as he prepared breakfast. "That's not fair," Erica sobbed in Swedish to her father. "I hate the piano." Eric's face flushed instantly. He crouched to hug his daughter, then said in halting but clear Chinese to Lin's mother, "Mom, please don't do this. Erica needs to like music, not fear it." The air in the room seemed to freeze. The soft clink of the teacup put down sounded harsh. Lin stood in the kitchen doorway, clutching half-cut fruit, her heart pounding. "I've raised a daughter who reached piano grade 8, Lin's mother said finally, calm but with effort visible. You, tell me, does strict training work or not?" All eyes turned to Lin. Her throat tightened. This was more than a debate about piano lessons. It was a showdown between two educational philosophies, and she was the referee. She put down the fruit knife, crouched beside Erica, gently wiped her tears. "Sweetheart, do you want to keep learning piano?" Erica sniffled, rubbing her cheek against Lin's shoulder. "I like music, but not practicing the same things over and over." "I have an idea," Lin said, looking at her mother and then Eric. "Practice basic skills for 20 minutes a day, then you can play whatever you like, even nursery rhymes. On weekends, we'll have family concerts. How about that?" This compromise temporarily calmed the storm. But that night, after Erica fell asleep, the real conversation began. Lin's mother went to bed early, leaving Lin and Eric silently cleaning up in the kitchen. "I know what you're thinking." Lin broke the silence. "But Mom means well. In China, strict education is a form of love." Eric put down the plate he was drying. "I get it, but Eric is not purely Chinese. She needs to find her own way. Like us?" Lin smiled bitterly. "Exactly like us." Eric held her hand. "Remember when we first met? How much you hated the Swedish casualness, and I couldn't get why Chinese were so polite. Now we've found a middle ground." Leaning on his shoulder, Lin suddenly felt utterly exhausted. "Sometimes I envy families from the same culture. At least they don't have to debate East versus West on every decision." "Really?" Eric kissed the top of her head. "That sounds so boring." The joke made Lin laugh softly. She looked up at the Swedish man who had made her fall in love at first sight, his eyes lined now with fine wrinkles, his blonde hair streaked with silver, yet his tenderness and humor intact. "Seriously," Eric said, "I was the complete opposite as a kid. My parents never interfered with my interests. I could start and quit whatever I wanted. The result? I switched 3 instruments and ended up with nothing. Sometimes I wish someone had pushed me." Lin was surprised. Eric rarely spoke of childhood regrets. This unexpected confession made her realize they were both trying to fill gaps in their own upbringing. She wanted to give Erica more freedom, and he hoped their daughter would learn perseverance. "I hated the piano once," she whispered. "When I was 10, I deliberately spilled cola on the keys just to get a week off." Eric's eyes widened. "Really? You never told me." Too embarrassing. Mom hit my palm and then borrowed money to fix the piano. Lynn recalled, strangely without pain this time. But now, I'm grateful she insisted. The piano was my best stress relief in college. They shared a knowing smile. Seeing the same insight in each other's eyes, perhaps the truth about education lies not in strictness or permissiveness, but in dynamically adjusting to the child's personality. Like their cross-cultural marriage, not choosing one side over the other, but finding a unique balance amid the clash. The next morning at breakfast, Lynn announced a new plan. Erica would practice basics for 20 minutes daily, then freely create. Saturdays would be music exploration days, with the family listening to various music styles and trying simple instruments together. Grandma and Dad would take turns guiding, with no one allowed to be too strict or too lenient. I have another idea, Eric added. We could mix Chinese and Swedish nursery rhymes and create Erica's own songs. Lynn's mother frowned initially, but seeing her granddaughter's excitement, eventually nodded. Let's try it. The compromise succeeded beyond expectations. Erica quickly composed her first Sino-Swedish song using the melody of two tigers with Swedish lyrics, naming it Two Polar Bears. Grandma accompanied on piano while Eric contributed guitar chords from Swedish folk tunes. When this quirky hybrid premiered at the family concert, Lynn recorded a video. In the footage, 3 generations of traditional Chinese mother, a Swedish son-in-law, and their mixed-race granddaughter created a unique family cultural voice together. The video later became the first case study on the Northern Lights Bridge website, titled When East Meets West, Creating Your Family's Third Culture. As Northern Lights Bridge's influence grew, Lynn landed her first corporate client, a multinational tech company wanting cultural adaptation training for expatriate families. The contract was enough for a small office and a part-time assistant. On signing day, the family celebrated at a nearby Chinese restaurant. Lynn's mother even tried eating spaghetti with a fork in effort to accommodate Eric's Western tastes. "Mom, you've come a long way," Lynn said with a smile, raising her juice glass. "Remember when you first met Eric and insisted on Ray washing every chopstick he touched?" Her mother snorted but smiled warmly. Getting old means learning to be flexible. She turned to Eric and said in broken but sincere English, "Thank you for treating my daughter well." Eric nearly spilled his wine in surprise. It was the first time his mother-in-law spoke English directly to him, and a rare emotional gesture. He stood, holding his glass with both hands, and toasted, "Thank you for raising such an outstanding daughter." Watching the 3 most important people in her life toast each other, Lynn suddenly understood what balance she had been seeking, not a perfect divide between career and family, nor an either-or cultural choice, but a harmony uniquely forged in their chaos. In the taxi home, Erica dozed in Lynn's arms, clutching a rainbow lollipop from the celebration. "Mom," she murmured half asleep, "next week is the school culture festival. I want to sing Two Polar Bears. Can Grandma play piano?" "Of course, sweetheart." Lynn kissed her daughter's forehead. Outside, Shanghai's neon lights flickered. The Oriental Pearl Tower sparkled in the night. Lynn thought of Stockholm's Northern Lights, 2 vastly different beauties, both breathtaking. And her life, her family, was exactly this blend of beauty, not perfect, but real. Not simple, but worth it. Chapter 8. Vows beneath the Northern Lights. The Northern Lights Bridge anniversary party was only halfway through when Lin Yue's phone suddenly vibrated non-stop. The caller ID read Ningbo home, making her heart tighten. Her father rarely called proactively. Yu. Her father's voice was taut like a stretched string. "Your mother suddenly has chest pain and has been rushed to the hospital. The doctor says she needs immediate surgery." A champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering into sparkling fragments on the office floor. The laughter and chatter around her stopped abruptly. All eyes turned toward her. "What surgery?" Lin Yi heard her own voice as if from far away. "A cardiac stent. The doctor said her artery is 90% blocked." Her father's voice broke intermittently. "She refuses to sign the consent form and insists on waiting for you." 20 minutes later, Lin Yi sat in a taxi heading to Ningbo, her fingers tapping anxiously on her knee. Eric took the next high-speed train with Erica. The scenery outside the window blurred by rapidly. Yet nothing compared to the flashbacks in her mind, the stern face of her mother teaching piano, her clumsy mouth moving Swedish words after the stroke, her proud smile while accompanying Erica at a recital. The cardiology ward at Ningbo First Hospital was packed with patients and family members. When Lin Ye pushed open the hospital room door, she saw her mother lying on a narrow bed, her face pale as old newspaper, various tubes snaking out from under the sheets and connecting to blinking monitors. "Mom!" She rushed to the bedside, holding her mother's cold hand. Lin's mother opened her eyes slightly, her lips trembling. "You're here." The doctor said they must insert a stent. The attending physician was a middle-aged man whose eyes behind his glasses were professional and calm. "There is severe stenosis in the right coronary artery and immediate interventional surgery is required. But your mother refuses to sign and insists on waiting for family members." "I don't trust these foreign things," Lin's mother said weakly but stubbornly. "Traditional Chinese medicine says it can be treated, Mom." Lin Ye's voice was anxious and angry. "This is a life-saving surgery. The risk consent form is here." The doctor handed over a tablet. "A family member needs to sign." Just then, the door opened again, and Eric rushed in carrying sleepy Erica. The doctor visibly hesitated when he saw the blonde-haired, blue-eyed foreigner. "And this is my husband," Lin Yue explained briefly. "Erica's father." The doctor's expression grew even more cautious. "According to Chinese law, only immediate blood relatives have signing authority. You as the daughter can sign, but a foreign spouse, I won't sign." Lin's mother suddenly struggled to sit up. "I want a traditional Chinese medicine consultation." The scene became chaotic. Nurses hurried to calm the patient. The doctor frowned while checking monitor data, and Erica, awakened by the noise, began to sob. Lin Yue stood at the bedside, feeling dizzy. She had lived in Sweden for years, accustomed to a healthcare system that respects patient autonomy, but now her mother's traditional mindset and the doctor's bureaucratic attitude left her helpless. "Doctor," Eric suddenly spoke in fluent Chinese, "in my mother-in-law's culture, medical decisions are made collectively by the family. Could we have 10 minutes for a private discussion?" Perhaps Eric's fluency helped. The doctor reluctantly agreed. After the medical staff temporarily left, Eric crouched by his mother-in-law's bed. "Mom, I know you're scared, but please trust modern medicine this time, just like you eventually accepted me." This unexpected humor made Lin's mother twitch her lips slightly. Eric continued, "Stent surgery is very common in Sweden. My father had one last year and now runs marathons. Don't you want to see Erica grow up?" "Grandma." Erica leaned on the bedside, her small hand touching Lin's mother's face. "Don't be afraid. I will play piano for you." Tears glistened in Lin's mother's eyes. She looked at her daughter, then her granddaughter, and finally at Eric. "You guarantee it's safe?" "I guarantee it." Eric held her hand. In the end, Lin's mother agreed to the surgery but insisted Lin Yue sign the consent. When the nurse wheeled the bed away, Lin's legs suddenly gave out and she collapsed onto a bench in the corridor. The tension of the past 2 hours ebbed like a tide, leaving behind a dawning fear she had almost lost her mother. Just as Northern Lights Bridge had just secured venture capital and life seemed to be improving. "She will be fine." Eric hugged her trembling shoulders. "Modern medicine is amazing. You don't understand." Lin buried her face in her hands. "In Chinese hospitals, there is no concept of patient autonomy. If Mom refused firmly, doctors might really have given up. Just like with my grandfather." Eric silently embraced her. It was the first time Lin Yij mentioned her grandfather's death, a stubborn man who died from a curable illness because he refused Western treatment. The medical choices of 2 generations reflected China's long journey from resisting to accepting Western medicine. The surgery was successful. When the doctor announced the artery was well opened, Lin's tears finally flowed freely. Outside the ICU, she saw Eric searching on his phone for post-heart surgery Chinese medicine rehabilitation, while Erica had drawn a crooked grandma's recovery picture, decorated with hearts and rainbows. "Thank you." Lin leaned on Eric's shoulder. "If you hadn't convinced Mom, that's what family means." Eric kissed her forehead. filling in each other's blind spots. Lynn's mother's recovery was long but smooth. Northern Lights bridge work had to slow down temporarily, with Lynn delegating most duties to her team while commuting daily between hospital and home. Unexpectedly, Eric took on more responsibility, from learning to make nourishing soups to studying traditional Chinese rehab techniques. This Swedish man was more dedicated than many Chinese sons-in-law. "You've changed," Lynn said one night, watching Eric skillfully massage her mother's foot at acupoints. "You used to question these unscientific traditional therapies." Eric didn't look up. Science is a tool. Culture is wisdom. If a method has helped so many people for thousands of years, it deserves respect. The day Lynn's mother was discharged, Northern Lights Bridge received a nomination for the International Education Innovation Award. Supported by UNESCO, the award honors programs promoting cross-cultural understanding. "We should go to Paris to accept the award," Lynn excitedly said. "Bring Mom and Erica, make it a family trip." But her mother's passport issues complicated plans. Getting a visa on short notice was difficult. More troubling, doctors advised against long flights. "You go." Her mother waved her off. "I'll watch the live broadcast at home." Lynn hesitated. The award recognized their family's cross-cultural practice, and it wouldn't be complete without every member. As she pondered remote attendance, Eric proposed a compromise. "Why not hold the ceremony in China?" he suggested at a team meeting. "Our case studies are all based on China. An on-site presentation would be more convincing." After 2 weeks of intense negotiation, the organizers agreed to this special arrangement. The award ceremony would be held in Shanghai and broadcast globally online. Lynn's mother could sit in the audience, and Erica would be the youngest attendee. On the day of the award ceremony, Lynn Yia wore a dress that blended Eastern and Western elements, a Swedish-designed cut embroidered with Chinese silk. Eric unexpectedly chose to wear a Zhongshan suit, paying homage to Chinese traditional culture. Erica wore a Sino-Swedish fusion dress she designed herself, with a Chinese-style hairpin adorning her golden curls. The Northern Lights Bridge project demonstrates the most touching possibility of cross-cultural education. The award citation read, "Not by erasing differences, but by creating harmony within them." As Lynn Yia stood under the spotlight, looking at Eric smiling in the audience, her proud mother, and excited Erica, she suddenly understood the meaning of it all. The trophy in her hands was not only recognition of her career, but also affirmation of their family's unique path, a winding trail between two cultures that revealed a more beautiful view. "Some say cross-cultural marriage is destined to be difficult." She spoke alternating in Chinese and English. "But I want to say love is not only the courage to cross differences, but the ability to learn from them. I thank my Swedish husband for teaching me the value of freedom, my Chinese mother for showing me the meaning of perseverance, and my mixed-race daughter for reminding me every day that identity need not be one or the other. We can embrace multiple cultures at once and create new possibilities." The entire audience rose in applause. Lynn's mother wiped tears in the audience, while Erica proudly announced to those around her, "That's my mom." At the celebration banquet after the ceremony, a publisher from Singapore approached Lynn Yue and proposed turning their family story into a book. "There are many cross-national marriages, but few successful integrations like yours," the publisher said enthusiastically, "especially from the perspective of 3 generations, very valuable." That night, back at the hotel, Lynn Yia and Eric stood by the window overlooking the Shanghai nightscape. Erica was already fast asleep in the next room. "A book?" Eric raised an eyebrow. "Are we a success story? Remember last week we almost fought over whether Erica should attend extracurricular classes?" Lynn Yia smiled softly. "Success doesn't mean no conflicts, but learning to grow through them." She turned to face her husband. "Remember when we first met? You said the aurora symbolizes a new beginning." "The Esme legend." Eric nodded. "The souls of the departed dance in the northern lights, blessing the living." "I want to take Mom to see the aurora," Lynn suddenly said. "The doctors say she's now fit for short flights, and Sweden's medical care is excellent. Let's fulfill her wish and start anew where it all began." Eric's eyes lit up. "Kiruna's Ice Hotel has accessible rooms, and the aurora is most beautiful before Christmas. So, 2 months after Northern Lights Bridge won the award, the international family set off again, this time to the Arctic Circle, with a Ningbo grandmother who had never seen snow. The cold in Kiruna exceeded Lin's mother's expectations. When the airport shuttle drove through -30-degree darkness, she wrapped tightly in the down jacket Eric had specially bought, muttering quietly, "How can people live in such a cold place?" But the next night, when the emerald aurora danced like silk above the ice hotel, everyone held their breath. Lin's mother sat in a specially made heated wheelchair, gazing upward at nature's most spectacular light show. Her aged face bathed in a dreamlike green glow. "So beautiful," she murmured in Ningbo dialect, her breath quickly frosting in the air. Like the ribbons of the immortals, Erica excitedly pointed to the sky. "Grandma, is that great-grandma dancing?" "Dad said the aurora is the souls of the departed." Lin's mother paused, then smiled. "Maybe. You never met her, but she must be proud of you." Lin Yue and Eric clasped hands, quietly admiring the wonder. 7 years ago, under such northern lights, they pledged to spend their lives together. Now that love had blossomed, bridging generations and cultures, in the Ice Hotel's wedding chapel, they held a simple vow renewal ceremony. Erica was the flower girl, scattering plum blossom petals brought from China. Lin's mother sat front row, recording the moment on her phone. When Eric said in newly learned Ningbo dialect, "Thank you, Mom, for entrusting me with your daughter," the elderly lady wiped tears from her eyes. "I have a surprise," Eric announced after the ceremony. "Tomorrow we're going to Abisko National Park for a traditional Esme dinner under the aurora." But plans soon changed. That night, Lin's mother felt slight chest tightness, though it eased quickly. For safety, they decided she would rest at the hotel, accompanied by a nurse who spoke basic Chinese. "You go with Erica," Lin's mother insisted. "I'm old. One aurora is enough for me. Besides, I can watch from the glass roof here." So at dusk the next day, Lin Yue, Eric, and Erica rode snowmobiles to the national park. Bundled like little dumplings, Erica sat between her parents, squealing with excitement. As they enjoyed reindeer meat and cloudberry jam in a Esme tent, the aurora ignited outside again, more brilliant than the night before. "Mom?" Erica suddenly asked. "The Esme believe the aurora is the souls of the departed." "What do Chinese people believe?" Lin Yue thought for a moment. "Chinese believe that after loved ones pass, they become stars watching over us." "So should I look at the aurora or the stars?" The child's question struck to the heart. Eric lifted his daughter outside the tent. "Sweetheart, you can believe whichever makes you feel warm or create your own story. Just like you are both Chinese and Swedish. But most importantly, you are Erica." "I am Erica," the little girl repeated, then pointed at the sky. "So tonight, the aurora is Dad's family, the stars are Mom's family, and they're having a party together." This innocent yet profound metaphor made Lin Yue and Eric smile at each other. In a child's eyes, cultural differences are not an either-or choice, but a beautiful coexistence. Returning to the Ice Hotel late at night, Lin's mother was still awake, wearing reading glasses and studying a Esme craft book. "Did you have fun?" she asked, putting down the book. Erica immediately threw herself into her grandmother's arms, excitedly describing the snowmobiles and reindeer meat. Lin noticed on her mother's nightstand a medicine box and water cup, alongside Swedish language flashcards prepared by Eric. The elderly lady was actually teaching herself basic Swedish vocabulary. "Mom, you're learning Swedish?" Lin couldn't help but ask. Lin's mother closed the cards with a slight embarrassment. "Just looking. Can't always rely on a translator." This small gesture spoke louder than words once opposed to cross-national marriage. The grandmother was now actively trying to understand her son-in-law's culture. Lin Yue suddenly realized that true cultural integration is not one-sided compromise, but a mutual approach. On the last day of the trip, they took a family photo in front of Kiruna's church. The snowy steeple and bright blue sky framed four people: Chinese mother, Swedish father, mixed-race daughter, and Chinese grandmother smiling brighter than the Arctic sun. The photo later became the cover of Lin Yue's new book, titled Promise Under the Northern Lights. the story of a cross-cultural family. At book signings, readers often asked her the secret to their success. No secret, Lin always replied. Only the willingness to keep trying. We have argued, compromised, and created. The important thing is to always remember love is not just the flutter of the first meeting, but the daily choice to cross differences. The same year the book was published, Northern Lights Bridge founded the Cross-National Family Support Foundation. Its first donation helped foreign spouses learn local languages. Unexpectedly, Lin's mother became the foundation's cultural ambassador, sharing her own experience to tell other Chinese parents. Cross-national marriages are not easy, but the rewards are far greater than imagined. Another Lunar New Year came, and the family reunited at their Shanghai home. Lin's mother and Erica made dumplings together. Eric tried his hand at writing Spring Festival couplets, and Lin Yia prepared for a video call they would celebrate New Year's Eve with relatives in Sweden virtually. When the clock struck midnight and fireworks lit up the Huangpu River, the four raised their glasses on the balcony. Lin's mother said Happy New Year in her newly learned Swedish. Eric sang a Ningbo children's song in Chinese. Erica played her self-composed Sino-Swedish tune. And Lin Yia quietly watched this incredible yet wonderful family scene, bathed in fireworks. She recalled the rainy day they first met in Stockholm, the vow under the northern lights, and the countless reconciliations after cultural clashes. All the twists and struggles had finally led to this perfect moment. Love can cross mountains and seas, and it can blend cultures. The Northern Lights will forever witness their promise.
Promise under the Northern Lights, extra story. The North Star, Lin Xiaobai, put away your Lego. Lin Yu called out in both Chinese and English, her voice echoing through their duplex apartment. The 5-year-old mixed-race boy peeked out from behind the sofa, his golden brown curls bouncing, blue eyes blinking, clutching a plastic creation that looked suspiciously like a Transformers dumpling. Mom, look, dumpling robot. Little Bei, full name Lin Shengmo, nicknamed after the Northern Lights, or his parents met, excitedly shouted in a mix of Chinese and Swedish, completely ignoring the tidying up order. Lin Yu sighed and glanced toward Eric, who was helping make dumplings in the kitchen. Her Swedish husband shrugged, flour dusting his sandy beard. At least it's creative? In Sweden, we encourage kids. This is China, Lin Yu reflexively cut in with a classic line from their 10 years of marriage, then laughed softly. Good grief, we're still having the same conversations. The doorbell rang and 10-year-old Erica burst out of the study like a gust of wind, her black and gold ponytail bouncing. Unlike her brother, she inherited her mother's black hair and her father's icy blue eyes, a walking billboard of cultural fusion. The BBC people are here, she announced, switching fluently between English and Chinese as she deftly adjusted the living room. Grandma said to put her embroidery work in a prominent spot. Over the past 5 years, the Northern Lights Bridge had grown from a small consulting company into a globally recognized platform for cross-cultural education. Today, the British BBC was visiting to interview this model cross-national family about their experiences raising children in multicultural environments. Lin Yu gave her hair a final touch and opened the door to welcome the interview team. Just then, Little Bei suddenly dashed up with his dumpling robot in hand and shouted in front of the camera, "Look, this is a China-Sweden joint invention." The director crouched down, pleasantly surprised. "Wow, what's this?" "A dumpling shell, a robot heart," the boy explained seriously. "Just like me, China outside, Sweden inside, no, Sweden outside, China inside, a ... He scrunched up his face, vocabulary failing to keep up with the complex idea. "He means his cultural identity," Erica translated fluently, then whispered to her brother, "Say it slowly in Chinese." The camera captured the entire scene, making for the most natural opening of the interview. Journalist Janet smiled at Ling Yu. "This is the magic of your family, isn't it? Cultural fusion isn't theory, it's everyday life." The interview went exceptionally smoothly. Eric showed off his collection of Quiet Night Thought poetry books in 12 languages. Lin's mother shared her journey from opposing cross-national marriage to becoming a cultural bridge. And Erica recited her self-written poem, My Color Is Not Just One, in 3 languages. But the real highlight was Little Bei's unexpected performance. When asked about family traditions, the 5-year-old suddenly ran in holding a small guitar, a birthday gift from Eric last year. "I'll sing a song." he declared, then began playing a strange hybrid tune, the melody of the Swedish folk song Bibi Vita Lamb paired with Chinese adapted lyrics. Little white lamb. Eating green grass, Grandma says. Eat well ... Lynn's mother gasped, covering her mouth. This was exactly what she often said to her picky grandson. Even more surprising, after the Swedish part, the boy switched to the Ningbo dialect and sang the nursery rhyme Rockabye Rock taught by his grandmother. Oh my, the reporter exclaimed. He has absolutely no accent. Grandma teaches him every day, Lin Yu said proudly, while discreetly fixing the tag stuck out from her son's backwards pants. Language to him isn't a boundary, just different sounds. After the interview, Lin Yu and Eric relaxed on the balcony with coffee. May in Shanghai already carried the humidity of early summer. Below, Lin's mother played with the children in the park. Little Bay taught Grandma Swedish-style outdoor games, while Erica quietly read on a bench. Remember when we first argued about parenting? Eric suddenly said, about which school Erica should attend ... Lin smiled. Now Little Bay just broke both ways. Last week, his teacher told me he made a rap of the multiplication table and performed it during recess. That's our success, isn't it? Eric held her hand, not to make them perfect Chinese or perfect Swedish, but to let them freely be themselves, absorbing the best of both cultures. That evening's family meeting was hosted by Erica, the little cross-cultural expert. She spoke in 3 languages to ensure everyone understood. First agenda, summer plans. Option 1, visit Grandpa in Sweden. Option 2, visit Grandpa in Ningbo. Option 3, family trip to Hokkaido, because Little Bay wants to see Asia that's not China. I want to go to Hokkaido and eat salmon dumplings, Little Bay shouted. That's not a real dumpling. Grandma couldn't help but correct. Innovation is important, Grandma, the boy said seriously, like a little professor. Just like Mom says, culture is alive. Lin Yu and Eric exchanged smiles. This 5-year-old little rascal with his innocent wisdom summed up a truth they only understood after 10 years. The meeting ended with a democratic vote. Hokkaido won. But before that, they decided to visit Grandpa in Ningbo first, then Grandpa in Sweden. Balance is important, Erica concluded like a grown-up. Just like our dumpling filling, it can't be all meat or all veggies. At bedtime, Little Bay insisted on hearing Grandma's old stories and Dad's Nordic myths. Lin's mother brought out her treasured handwritten Ningbo nursery rhymes, her childhood keepsake from her own mother, carefully turning the yellowed pages and pointing at the words to teach her grandson to read. In another corner of the room, Eric was telling Viking legends to Erica in Swedish. 2 languages, 2 traditions, harmoniously coexisting in the same space, just like their family. Different on the surface, but one in essence. On the weekend, the whole family attended the community's International Cultural Festival. Northern Lights Bridge organized a mixed-race children's talent show. Erica performed a piano solo, a fusion of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata and the Chinese folk song Jasmine Flower. Little Bay led a group of children in his self-created Kung Fu-style Swedish folk dance. After the show, a shy Japanese mother approached. Ms. Lin, your children are amazing. My husband and I are a Japan-France couple, but our child always feels not Japanese enough or French enough. Do you have any advice? Lin Yu looked at Erica helping her brother fix his costume and softly replied, tell them they're not less, but more, like the northern lights not lacking any color, but a miracle with all colors. On New Year's Eve, this cross-national family's traditional fusion reached a new height. They made Nordic-filling dumplings, a creative mix of salmon and dill. Pasted bilingual Spring Festival couplets. Video called relatives in Sweden for countdown. And finally sang Gongshi Gongshi and the Swedish New Year song Helen Jujar together. When midnight struck, Little Bay suddenly ran to the balcony and shouted in his tender voice, Happy New Year, God Knit Year. The Chinese and Swedish greetings echoed into the night sky. Lin Yu stood by the window, looking at the little United Nations she had built. Eric adjusting the new hearing aid on her mother. Erica teaching cousins to say cheers in Swedish. And Little Bay, their little North Star, jumping on the sofa, waving a homemade China-Sweden friendship flag. 10 years ago, on that rainy day in Stockholm, she could never have imagined this future. Back then, she worried about cultural differences, suffered under parental disapproval, and feared unknown challenges. Now those differences had become their greatest treasure. The opposition transformed into steadfast support. The challenges turned into the most interesting stories. Look, Eric came beside her, handing her a glass of champagne, our northern lights. Outside the window, Shanghai's night sky was lit up by fireworks, colorful lights reflecting on every smiling face. In this small world built by love, the lines between east and west had long blurred, leaving only the brilliant, aurora-like beauty.